Welcome everyone to Expert Elite World. And today we have a special guest. Our guest is Shaun. Shaun, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hey Tony, how you doing? Yeah, I'm Shaun Bryant. I run CAD/FM Consultants over in the UK. And if I move around a little bit, you can just see my hometown there. That's Norwich Cathedral, the big pointy thing coming out of my head. And there's a little picture of the UK there with a little red dot on it to give you an idea of where I am. Yeah, I've been running CAD/FM now for over 20 years, providing training, consultancy on AutoCAD and Revit and various other flavors of AutoCAD, including all the tool sets, AutoCAD Web, AutoCAD Mobile. Lots of things going on in the sort of mobile collaboration space with AutoCAD right now, which is quite exciting. So glad to be here and to have a chat.
Yeah, I appreciate your time. Definitely. So when did you get started using any of the Autodesk products?
Oh, that's funny enough. I worked this out the other day. I've been using AutoCAD for 33 years this year. So,
oh, wow.
I started my first job when I was 18. I became a drainage engineering technician for a government organization in the UK. And basically all of the drawings were AutoCAD based. And we were using some third-party application that mapped drainage onto the drawings. So they were all government drawings. So if somebody was going to dig a hole in the road, I was the guy that pointed out, where not to dig, so they didn't put their, JCB through a great big water pipe of about, 2 or 3 feet in diameter or something. So.
Yeah. Do you remember what version you were using?
Oh, something. I have a feeling it was version 10. It was pre-Windows.
Pre-Windows.
So we still had the lovely monochrome, massive, the screens that were about 3 times as deep as they were wide. Yeah, so I think it was something like version 10, I think. Ish. And then obviously 12 for Windows came along, and all of a sudden we had color and little icons that we could actually click on, which was quite interesting.
So. Most people, new generation didn't realize just how big and bulky those monitors were back then and how heavy they were. We had one in our military base and it was a 21-inch monitor, but that thing was almost 50 pounds.
So. It's crazy. I mean, I'm sitting here now. I've got the MacBook over there and I've got 2 27-inch screens in front of me as well. Yeah, and they're as light as a feather. They sit on a couple of pneumatic arms, and I can just almost fingertip control them. They're that long, So it's funny when you train people and you go back to talk about the old CRT monitors, and there's the old Intergraph sort of arcade machine type module things that we used to sit at once in a while as well.
Do you even remember the type of computer you were using at the time?
Oh, we were actually the first machine I was on was a Unix box. That was all Unix based. And it was the old I think they used to be called Spark stations with a C. And they were all linked to a big server basically where all the drainage drawings were stored.
Yeah. Okay. So you train on AutoCAD. Is there any other Autodesk products you use other than just AutoCAD?
Yeah, well, obviously AutoCAD is my main skill set. I do quite a bit of Revit on the architectural side as well. Okay. If you go on I do a lot of LinkedIn learning courses over on the LinkedIn Learning Library, and I've done quite a lot of sort of transitional type courses where you're taking the CAD drawings into Revit and then obviously building up your conceptual model from that flat 2D floor plan. But yeah, do quite a bit of the sort of base level Revit training as well, sort of Revit essentials type level, getting people up to speed with how that kind of environment is very different to AutoCAD. It's interesting seeing that transition as well, because a lot of people when they're using AutoCAD, well, like me, I was so entrenched with AutoCAD when I first started using Revit that there were moments where I could have quite happily put my monitor out of the window without any trouble at all. The interfaces over time, thankfully, have aligned a lot more. You'll find there's a lot of commands in Revit that have kind of transitioned into AutoCAD. Things like the isolate type stuff, hide and isolate, came from Revit and moved into AutoCAD. And there's AutoCAD stuff like, for example, I can't remember what version of Revit it was, but it took ages to get things like zoom extents into Revit. And that came across from AutoCAD. And Autodesk have done a reasonably good job of Revit and managing it. The only thing I would say, obviously, we've had the recent letter to the CEO from various disgruntled Revit users not so long ago.
Yep, I remember the letter. I remember reading it and seeing it.
Yeah, it was an interesting one. I actually wrote a blog about it as well. Obviously, the Autodesk machine is huge.
Yeah.
And it takes a while for the smaller cogs to get moving, and then to get the bigger cogs to start moving, it takes even longer sometimes. And I think what they've done is an improvement. They've definitely improved their lines of communication to the users, which is fantastic. And, you know, Revit came along, especially with this release, with the 2022 release. There's a lot of new stuff in there that I could have done with quite some time back.
Yeah.
You know, things like sloping walls and things like that would have been massively useful for clients that I've worked with. But it's the same old thing. It's an evolutional thing. You know, AutoCAD has come along in leaps and bounds, but that's only because it's nearly 40 years old.
Yeah.
Whereas Revit came about I think about 2002-ish was kind of when Autodesk, I think it was when Autodesk acquired it. I can't quite remember now. I know that I was working for a reseller in their training center when Revit kind of appeared on the scene. And everybody was like, "Ooh, hello, this is interesting. You know, does this mean that, you know, architectural desktop, as it was known back in the day, has kind of had its day?" And weirdly enough, it hasn't. Architectural desktop is now the architecture toolset in AutoCAD with the AutoCAD subscription, and there's still plenty of users out there using it. You know, it's still a great product. All of the AutoCAD toolsets are very cool products. In their own right. They use the AutoCAD engine, but they have very different workflows. And that's something I've learned training on all the different products.
Yeah. So I've never used all the tool sets. So there's electrical tool set wrap for AutoCAD, and there's architectural tool set.
There's 7 tool sets in total.
I didn't even know that. I thought like 4.
Yeah, you got architecture, electrical, mechanical. There's plant 3D, raster design, and I'll think of the others in a moment. I think there's an AutoCAD MEP in there somewhere.
Yeah, MEP. Yeah.
And there's one more as well. And the only one that they didn't include in that, which I've had long conversations with Donnie Gladfelter about this, is Civil 3D. And Civil 3D really, in the scheme of things, shouldn't be a tool set anyway. It should be a product in its own right, because it's a big beast. Civil 3D does lots and lots of different things, whereas the tool sets have a specific singular workflow. So.
Yeah. I know Revit also, you know, didn't they combine Revit to one? They had Revit structural, then they had Revit and Revit, and then
that's right.
It's a big bundle now, right?
So, it's all, they're basically tabs in the ribbon now. You've got the structural tab, I think they call it services now instead of MEP. And you've also got the architecture tab in there as well. And I think that was a really good move by Autodesk as well, because people were having to pay out for 3 different versions of Revit. And really the core machinery was all doing the same thing. It was just the extra bits that people had to pay for. Revit's like I said, it's come along in leaps and bounds. Autodesk are doing the right thing with it. I'm sure there's going to be detractors out there. There always is. You're never going to please everybody. I mean, as you know, I'm a musician as well. And one of the things I learned from a musician friend of mine is record the music for yourself, because not everybody will like it.
Yeah. I mean, they're catering to, I don't know how many different countries, 70, 100 different countries. Every company's got their own design standards, things that how they design things. So you're gonna have a lot of voices.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, well, just look at you and I. You work in the States, I work in the UK. You're Imperial, I'm Metric. That's a conversation starter already. You know, it's just the way it is. But you know, it's one of those things where I think Autodesk do an extremely good job of catering for all those different localized versions. And I don't envy the person that has to manage all of that different localization either, because not only have you got to think about the standards, you've got to think about the language. And then if you move into a language like Japanese or Chinese, you've got to think about the symbology as well. Because, you know, I mean, I had I think it was an AutoCAD drawing I was looking at recently, and it came up and it actually asked me if I wanted to install the Japanese language set. because obviously this drawing had originated or gone through a Japanese version of AutoCAD at some point. And I was like, no, just no. No, that'll just make things even more confusing.
More difficult.
Yeah. Can you imagine though, just, I mean, this is something that, you know, it works both ways. Can you imagine approaching a version of AutoCAD and looking at the ribbon and everything is in Japanese?
Yeah. Oh man.
And then imagine someone who's Japanese then going to an English version and going, what's going on? You know, that's the battle that Autodesk have. And it's, you know, when you think that they've got that coverage and things seem to be working, you know, it's fair play to them, I think. Talking of Japan, actually, something very interesting I noticed in the CAD news at the moment is that they seem to have dropped AutoCAD LT in favor of full AutoCAD out there. I noticed in various sort of publications now that the full AutoCAD is available for the LT price in Japan. I don't quite know what is going on there. It's interesting. I know one thing about the sort of APAC kind of geo is that a lot of them out there, they go straight from 2D to 3D. There's no transition. So, I mean, when I was on a drawing board way back when, I worked on a big project in China, and the guys that came over from China, the Chinese engineers and technicians, they weren't interested in paper drawings. They wanted to see the CAD models. And these models were all in 3D. So it was all petrochemicals. They had all the big platforms, pipes, tanks, vessels, and so on. And we were taking them through, and we had this amazing thing. I mean, for those of you that remember Intergraph back in the day, we had this amazing thing where you could actually do a walkthrough on an Intergraph system. And it was a bit like the old Star Wars arcade game. I don't know if you remember that one that actually had the box and you sat in the box. Yeah, like you were in the X-Wing fighter, right? It was a bit like that. So you literally put one of these Chinese guys in the box, put the headset on, and they could walk through the entire structure. Oh, wow, and this is going back to probably about mid-90s. So the technology was there then, and then all of a sudden, all these headsets kind of disappeared. And now, you know, I mean, AU 2019 was the last AU where we were in person, and every single booth you went to had a VR headset. It was crazy. It was like being back in the 80s again and watching Weird Science and stuff like that.
I got to dabble with the Halo VR glasses. You know, a lot of construction.
They're meant to be very cool, aren't they?
Yeah, they're pretty cool. But man, for $5,000 though, man.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? It's
$5,000.
Yeah, the tech still has a price tag. I mean, something that I went and did just recently, I'm a big Apple fan. I've been running MacBook Pros now for about the last 7 years. And what I do is I just dual boot them with Windows and Mac OS so that I can run all the Autodesk software. Also, the benefit there is I've got a laptop that will run AutoCAD for Mac as well, which is great. One day we might see Revit for Mac. You never know. Who knows? But we'll see. But yeah, no, the Apple stuff is still expensive. But the reason I'm talking about the Apple stuff is I discovered this amazing app. And this is where you can probably realize how technology has moved along dramatically. And it's an app called Canvas. And you can get it on, I think it's the iPhone 12 and upwards and the iPad Pro and upwards. So I just thought, right, I want the app. I want to see how it works. So I just traded in my old iPad 4 and bought an iPad Pro, which wasn't cheap, but, you know, the tech was really useful because the iPhone 12 and the iPad Pros have a LiDAR scanner. And the technology there now, I can literally pick up my phone like that and just go around this room and get a point cloud out of it, just using a phone. Now, if you go back, like I said, to the 90s when we were doing those 3D walkthroughs, you know, you needed to possibly use the electricity of a small town to allow somebody to walk around something. Now, you can just pick up your phone, hold it up and walk around. You've got augmented reality, virtual reality, and you can do that. And you can do that from AutoCAD if you want to. It doesn't have to be something like 3D Studio Max or Maya or anything like that. It can be anything.
It just blows my mind how far we've come in just 25 years, technology. In just 25 years, things have, what have we achieved?
It's gone insane. I can remember when I set up the business, all I was doing was classroom-based AutoCAD training.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
And it was literally flat 2D drawings. And then if you were really lucky, you might get a 3D AutoCAD course once every 3 months or so, give or take. And now everybody's like, oh, how do I do 3D? How do I do this? How do I do that?
Yeah.
You know, and you know, you start talking to people about surfaces, meshes, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I don't know if you've noticed, for example, the new AutoCAD 2022 livery. You've got the houseboat now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, I was really lucky. I had a few dealings with Autodesk on that one and helped them develop that. And working with the team, we were working with things like Maya, 3D Studio Max, AutoCAD, and developing lots of different bits and pieces for that particular scenario. Because what we wanted to make sure happened was the elements that were in the houseboat could be translated literally back to a flat 2D environment and shown how they could be developed up through the tool sets into that beautiful houseboat image that you see on the Autodesk webpage. And it's amazing how things have moved along, like you say, like that, where technology, I mean, I can just literally kind of say, oh, download a Google file. I can drop it straight into AutoCAD and I can locate my design immediately, you know, and the technology is insane, just insane now.
Oh, yeah, definitely agree. I mean, we are, talking about BIM too. I think what level BIM are you? 3 or something?
I think officially in the UK now, level 2 is kind of the de facto benchmark. But I know that level 3, because we've just had the EN 19650 standards come out officially. So that's kind of meant to be level 3.
Yeah. I don't think we'll ever get to those levels. We have too many government review parties in each state. I don't think you'll ever have the whole United States on a certain BIM level. East Coast is so different than the southern states, and the West Coast is so different. And so, and we're not even, I don't think we're at, bigger construction companies. Yeah, they might be using BIM, but I say majority of them are not. We're more of a B, not BIM. Just BIM. So we're at right now. We're at.
That's funny. That's funny. Well, one of the things that we have in the UK is we have a thing called the Private Finance Initiative, PFI, and that started many years ago. I don't think it's called PFI anymore. That was the original name for it. But basically, it's government-funded construction. So we're talking things like hospitals, prisons, government buildings, and so on. And all of those, you have to have a specific BIM level. You have to, Revit is the standard software for the majority of that. And that's all government sort of standards saying you must have this, you must have this, you must have this. I mean, I'm not privy. I haven't worked on any of those projects for some time, but basically the idea there is that you've got that benchmark that you work to. But it's funny you should talk about the states not having that BIM level, or like you jokingly said, we're up to B in BIM right now. I get it. I've got some really close friends from an Autodesk and CAD and BIM perspective over in Australia, for example. And they're at a similar level to the States. They're just beginning to get BIM sort of out there and being the standard. And, some of the architects that I know in Australia, they've worked on some fantastic projects, but they're just to Australian standards. They're not to BIM standards, so to speak. And BIM's an interesting thing. There's a mindset there as well, because like I said, I do a lot of sort of transitional type training where somebody will go from AutoCAD to Revit, but then realize that AutoCAD is still a function that you need, especially with the flat 2D drawings that might have to go out to a builder or a fabricator, a steelwork fabricator or something like that. But there's still this mindset, oh, I've got Revit, that means I know how to do BIM. And it's like, it doesn't quite work like that, I'm afraid. Revit is the tool that allows you to implement BIM within your organization. And then you start trying to explain to them what BIM's all about. And you start going into things like BIM execution plans and how the files go out to other people, how you collaborate and so on. And BIM is, well, it is literally what it says on the tin. It is building information modeling. You're building a model that you can suck the information out of and then pass it on to others. And then it can be costed, quantified, etc.
Yep. When did you, do you recall when you joined the Expert Elite program?
Oh, wow. Not so long ago, actually. I think I've been in for, I think it's 5 years.
5 years?
I've got a gut feeling it's 5 years.
Okay.
I applied, I think I got in on my 3rd attempt as well. I applied 3 times. And then I think Katinka and the team took pity on me and just said, oh, let him in. But yeah, no, I can't fault the Expert Elite. I can't fault Maureen for getting me some new swag as well.
There you go.
But yeah, but no, they're a great bunch of people. And the one thing I really enjoy is they allow people like you and me to shine in an environment where we're good at something. And more importantly, while we're shining because we're good at something, we're able to then impart that knowledge back to others, other users as well. And for me, that's worth its weight in gold, to be honest. I've worked on various projects with Autodesk over the years and various projects of my own, and I do wear the Expert Elite stuff when I'm training and things, and people go, oh, you know, Expert Elite, what's that? And you explain it, and what's really, really lovely to see is you can see the people that want to aspire to be an Expert Elite, and I can only encourage them and say, go for it. Every time I see an Expert Elite pop up on LinkedIn, for example, a new one, I'll be one of the first to say, you know, congratulations, well done. And it's a fantastic family to be in. It's just a shame that we haven't been able to meet up in person for some time. You know, that's due to this massive, you know, permanent work from home experiment we're part of right now. So.
Are y'all currently still kind of locked down over there?
Yeah, the UK's in a bit of a weird situation right now. We're at like phase 2 of lifting lockdown. We had a phase 1, a phase 2, and June 21st it's meant to be the official lifting of all lockdown kind of sanctions and stuff. Hasn't really affected me too much. I've worked from home pretty much for the last 20 years anyway. So from that work from home perspective, I'm used to it. It's no biggie for me. But I've got a lot of friends, especially in the industry, in like architecture, engineering, construction, etc. They're not only having to work from home, they've got their they haven't got their kids at home anymore. Fortunately, they've all gone back to school now. But they had their kids at home for a year, so they had to homeschool for a year, work from home for a year when they're normally used to going to the office every day. And yeah. It's been an interesting upheaval worldwide, I think, and from a CAD industry perspective, I think it's made people a lot more aware of the kind of hybrid models we can use for working now, which I think are really important. And funnily enough, I'm just developing a course on LinkedIn Learning about sort of post-COVID, going back to work, facilities management kind of scenario.
Okay, cool. So, so what have you done to do training, you know, become an expert in these products, you know, where you're taking classes, where you're doing self-training, you know?
Basically, 9/11 was a catalyst for me, which sounds a bit weird because I was in the UK at the time. And it's probably sounds a bit macabre as well, actually, but it wasn't. I was working for a very big UK reseller at the time. And I was providing support, training, and high-level service agreements for tier 1 customers for this big reseller, one of which was General Motors, which is our Vauxhall brand here in the UK. And basically, because 9/11 happened, General Motors pulled all of their business out of all the other countries and sucked it all back into the US, which was understandable at the time. You know, the world changed quite dramatically, which meant I lost my biggest tier 1 customer that I looked after. That was probably 3 days of my work in a normal Monday to Friday working week. So my boss at the time kind of pulled me to one side and said, look, you know, we're probably going to have to let you go. You know, we can't really pay for your particular role in the business. And at that time, it was like, wow, you know, this is going to be complicated. I've got a 2.5-year-old and a 3-month-old at that point. And he then turned around and kind of said to me, well, something we could do, how's about you, go freelance and we give you 3 days training a week. You run a 3-day training course each week for us and see how you go. And that was how CAD FM kind of came about. So I was just, in essence, a freelance trainer. I started doing all of the sort of Autodesk required train the trainer type training, and became an Autodesk certified instructor. That then, obviously, when certification came out, I became a certified professional in both AutoCAD and Revit as well. And that's a prerequisite to be an instructor anyway, now, if you go through the Autodesk Learning Partner Program. And funnily enough, now it's kind of gone full circle because CAD FM are now an Autodesk training center. So we provide training in the UK. And what I've been working on by way of a business plan over the last 6 months or so is developing an entirely virtual training provision, which has meant I've been insanely busy through the pandemic, whereas other people haven't. So, which is a bit weird as well. But yeah, I started training. So that would have been around, let me think, that was 2000, wasn't it? 9/11, if I remember rightly. Yeah. So yeah, I've been trading 20 years. That's about right, timeline wise. And that progressed. And then I started because I was freelance, I wasn't tied to that reseller anymore.
Yeah.
I could go and train for other resellers, other ATCs.
Yeah.
So I started reaching out and offering my services that way. And I ended up with a really great contract with a government organization for nearly 12 months, where I was transferring everybody in the organization from AutoCAD 14 to, I think it was AutoCAD 2002, possibly.
Ooh,
it's quite a while ago.
A big jump.
Yeah. That was a big leap, though, obviously, from 14 to 2002, because things started changing quite a lot in the products and so on back then.
I think there was additional, like, couple hundred new commands within.
Everything changed.
Yeah.
14, you suddenly went from like having tile mode 1 and tile mode 0 to being able to go from model to paper space and all that kind of stuff. And that kind of set me up. That set the company up. That particular 12-month contract. I ended up as part of their CAD committee. I was their CAD consultant throughout the entire organization. And then things changed. It became quite an interesting environment for me, because suddenly people were reaching out to me to say, do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? I CAD managed for a little while as a consultant as well. I did that for an organization for a while. So I kind of became a bit of a jack of all trades, really. And then it kind of got to a level where I was dealing with, rather than the resellers, I was dealing with Autodesk and working with Autodesk, developing things and developing other things like that. So there was a thing we did quite a few years back now, where we got involved with an organization called the Learning and Performance Institute, the LPI. And Autodesk got I think it's about 15 sort of high-level trainers in the UK together.
Yeah.
And we were in this hotel for a week, getting trained up. It was all train the trainer type stuff. And it was all about training, performance monitoring and analysis, TPMA.
Yeah.
And it was a training methodology, and we basically ended up rolling that out in the whole of Northern Europe to all of the ATCs.
Yeah.
So I got to go to Sweden, Denmark, various other countries as well. I did the UK as well. And it was a fantastic time. It was really, really good fun. And again, it allowed me to hone my soft skills rather than just my AutoCAD and Revit skills.
Yeah.
And then 5 years ago, the LinkedIn, well, it was originally lynda.com. An old Autodesk friend of mine started working for lynda.com, and I was her first acquisition, as she called it, as an author. And I haven't really looked back. That's what I've been doing pretty much full time now for the last 5 years, is generating learning content for what is now LinkedIn Learning.
Yeah. I've done 2 courses. I mean, I didn't have any plans to do it over and over, but I did 2 courses on LinkedIn Learning, one on each product, from Civil 3D and InfraWorks. And so it was a good time, with doing it. So I don't know if you did it remotely or you did it in California, their studio.
I Well, under normal conditions, I was popping out to the LinkedIn Learning Campus in Carpinteria a couple of times a year.
Yeah. Okay.
Normally, I'd go out there just before the big release in March for AutoCAD and make sure that we had all of the stuff ready to go day on date for AutoCAD. And then the other week I'd go out there would normally be the week before AU or the week after.
I will say that, the food was good. You had all the snacks you wanted when you're doing these courses. And the one thing I noticed is there was no, like, everything was healthy food. It was really great food.
Oh, yeah.
And then I was like, where's the sodas? Oh, we don't have sodas. You have to go to like the employee section, lounge and area. So I'll be sneaking into the employee section to get a Coke.
I remember that well.
Everything, it was all water, lemonade or something. So but the food spread was amazing, so I had a good time.
They're a great organization. They have come along in leaps and bounds the last couple of years. I kind of joined them just as they were transitioning from lynda.com to LinkedIn, and then 12 months later, of course, Microsoft acquired them as well, because obviously LinkedIn are a Microsoft company, and it's a fantastic organization. I work with some great people. We have a lot of fun working together, but also more importantly, I really like their learning offering. As an educator, as a trainer, an instructor, their offering is really quite clever, because what they've done is they've brought about not just learning AutoCAD, but you can go and learn how to set up a recording studio, to set up the microphones for somebody to record a vocal on a song. There's that complete disparity in content, and some of their soft skills stuff, they've really worked very, very hard on a lot of, topical issues, about the workplace, and it just works. And I don't think there's any other kind of offering out there quite like it at the moment. And Microsoft have been really quite savvy to acquire them as well, I think, because it gives them a really good handle on what people should be learning out there in the marketplace as well.
I remember when I showed up and they're like, okay, you got your scripts ready? And like, I don't need no script, And it's like, most people have scripts. Like, no, I'm going to freestyle this.
I never do scripts. Funnily enough, the most, I think it was the most recent AutoCAD release. We kind of sort of pimped it up a bit with it was called the Paparazzi Project by LinkedIn. So we had a little bit of kind of extra resource, and we did some live videos for the intro and the outro and stuff. So I'm sitting there with obviously we had to do it remotely as well because of COVID and stuff. So I'm sitting there staring at this webcam, trying to read my lines next to the webcam. And the amount of times that the producer, no, we can see your eyes going like this, looking at the script,
left and right,
camera, and it was fun when we got it right. It was great, and it worked out really, really well. But I ended up using one of these little beasties, the little gorilla stands like that, on my webcam. And that kind of was connected over here to the unit, and I was kind of looking over here at the webcam and so on. But that was good fun. But LinkedIn are good, and at the end of the day, they paid my bills for 5 years.
Some days I did good, some days I did bad. Some days especially when you're freestyling, you just couldn't put
you can have a rough
thoughts
day.
together.
Absolutely.
And I only got like maybe 6 videos done the whole day. But the next day I would knock out like 18 videos. I'm just boom, I'm in the zone, boom, 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 boom. So
it is like that. I mean, one of the lovely things that obviously I've been going out there a lot now for the last 5 years or so, and it's really nice because my producer would just go, you know where everything is, you know what you're doing, don't you? I'll come back at 5 o'clock and make sure you're okay. So it was a bit like that. The only time that I did something really silly was obviously they have the sound booths, the whisper booths that you're in. And you got all the big recording equipment in the producer side. And what I managed to do on my Windows interface on the recording side of it was I managed to right click on the taskbar and hit exit on all of the, like, the sliders and everything that they use. And I had to send a quick text saying I've switched everything off. I don't know how, but I have. And Abby at the time, my producer, she popped over and said, nah, don't worry about it. It's easy. Just fix it. 10 minutes later, I was recording again. But I've done some live action stuff on their sound stages as well, which was fun.
Yeah.
That was the last time I was there. Actually, we did some on the actual sort of green screen soundstage.
Yeah.
And all that kind of stuff. And
That
I
was
had my
cool.
own
I saw
green
that.
room. I had to go to makeup and go to my green room and stuff, which was, I was like, this is fun.
Yeah.
Never had makeup on to
I
record
feel like a
a
movie
video.
star.
Yeah, it was fun. It was good. You know, you got your hanger. They say bring 4 or 5 shirts and hang them up, and we'll change it up a bit. And you can have a different shirt in this shot and a different shirt in this. Yeah, it was good fun. Good.
Riding the
fun.
bicycles from building to building.
Oh,
Ride the bike?
yeah. It's a big campus. It's a big campus.
Yeah.
I can remember when I first went out there, when it was lynda.com, they had 3 buildings, and they've now got like 10.
Yeah, they got a lot now. Yeah. So
yeah, it's big. And what's really, really nice is, as far as I'm aware, they're keeping all of those buildings and going to a hybrid model.
Yeah.
So it's, and again, you know, companies are having to really rethink that.
Yeah.
You know, this standard office environment is going to change, whether you like it or not. I don't think we'll ever actually get back to the exact same thing we had before COVID.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be some changes, and there's going to be some changes in the workflow, how you go in and out of your building as well.
Yeah. So do you have any tips you'd like to share with our users that are going to be watching this video?
Yeah. One of the things I've been working on a lot with Autodesk over the last year or so is obviously things have changed with AutoCAD quite a lot. You've got your regular desktop app, which has always been there. You know, that's not going to change. And that runs on Windows. You've got one for Mac as well. But what's really sort of piqued my interest over the last year or so, especially, is AutoCAD Web and AutoCAD Mobile, and how they interact with your desktop AutoCAD. One of the classes that I've run at AU over the last 3 or 4 years is I'll be up there on the stage at AU teaching, and I'll show them the AutoCAD desktop, and I'll go, here's a drawing, you know, here's how to make some changes to it, and then we'll save that up to the cloud. I'll either open up AutoCAD Mobile on my phone or the web app on my browser, and I'll show them how to make some changes, and then I'll save that. And then one of the things I do is I walk out to the audience with AutoCAD open on my phone, and I show them a bit of text, and I say, right, let's change that piece of text to what you want it to be, to prove that I'm not cheating. So somebody in the audience will say, okay, change that piece of text to, I don't know, or change it from hard standing to pavement, for example. And I'll change that, save it, upload it, and providing the internet connection is working at AU, which is always interesting anyway in Vegas at the Venetian, it's always a bit fun. I'll tell you a funny story about that in a moment as well. And then what will happen is I'll refresh that in my desktop, open it up from the cloud, and you'll see that change has been made. Now, one of the things that's happened with the recent 2022 version is you've now got a thing called Traces, which allows you to collaborate. And what I love about that is it actually allows me to go into something like AutoCAD Web and create a trace, which is in essence a markup. It's like a red line markup. So I can put a revision cloud in, a little bit of text, and save that drawing. And that trace will be saved with that drawing in the cloud from the web app. I can then jump back into the desktop. So somebody might be back at base while I'm sitting there on, say, an iPad in a browser doing AutoCAD. And they can make the changes real time. Whereas back in the old days, as you and I know, we used to take great big drawings, use bricks to hold them on our bonnet of our cars, and write red pen on the drawing and take it back and work on it the next day, which we don't have to do anymore. And again, this is that technology paradigm shift that we mentioned at the beginning. But yeah, what I can do, I can jump into the web app and the desktop app and show you a quick change. Okay, let's have a look at that. So I've got AutoCAD here, so that's there. So let's share that one. So what I've got here, this is a fairly standard drawing. And the whole idea of the drawing here is it's just a floor plan, basically. So you obviously panning around, zooming in and so on. And what I've got some sort of naming terminologies here. So we've got small conference room. So what I could do there is I could save this drawing now up to the web and mobile folders. You'll notice up here, logged into my Autodesk account. So that means I can use AutoCAD web and mobile, as they call it. So what I'll do is I'll save that first up to web and mobile. So that's on the quick access toolbar here. So I'll save that to web and mobile. Now, if you haven't installed this before, what will happen is a little driver will install. It takes about 30 seconds. So you can see there, I've got various folders that I've used over the years. You can see I've got some AU ones there, for example. So that's my AU 2020 data set there. And the name of this particular floor plan is 1031 Southeast Madison. So I'm going to go in there and I'll give this a file name. So we've got 00 ground floor plan revision C. So you can see there's no other drawings called that. So I'll save that in that folder like so. So that's now saved. And you can see you then get this great big weird file path at the top. Obviously, you can just click on save there and it just goes back to the drawing name rather than the big long file path. So that's been saved up to web and mobile. Now, what I can do now is I can jump into my browser. And what I'm going to do is open a new window because I know that I've got loads of stuff open already and you don't want to see all that stuff. So I'll start a new window there, jump into there. There you go. Let's see, I've got loads of stuff open, told you. Okay, let's maximize that one. And all we do is we go to web.autocad.com, like so. And the benefit with this is it's all part of your Autodesk subscription now. So if you've got AutoCAD, AutoCAD LT, you can use AutoCAD Web.
Do you want to sign in
using your Autodesk account?
Oh, do you want to switch screens so we can see?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So we're going into, let me have a look. There we go. That one there. So this is AutoCAD Web. And obviously you haven't seen me do the boring bits, signing in and all that kind of stuff. So I tend to leave it logged in anyway, because I do tend to use it quite a lot for training and LinkedIn learning courses and things now. So you'll recognize the folder is there. So there's my folder there. So there's the AU 2020 1031 Southeast Madison. So I'll jump in there and there's my 00 ground floor plan. So it's just like AutoCAD. I'm just going into a folder, selecting a file. Now, obviously, it depends on your bandwidth here with your internet. If you've got super fast internet, this will obviously be a little bit quicker. My internet where I live is not amazing, as you can see. So we get to watch the little blue ring of death go round and round a little bit, which is never fun. But the drawing's basically opening up as we go through now. And there you go. So there's the drawing there. We're now in the AutoCAD web interface. The drawing itself doesn't actually look any different, you'll notice. It looks exactly the same. Notice we've got the tabs down here, model, there's the layouts. We've got various bits on the status bar. It is a cut down version of AutoCAD though. So what you'll find is that you haven't got everything that you might have in your full desktop app. But the benefit you've got here though, is you can be anywhere to do this. Internet cafe. You can be in a client office and you can say, oh, just let me quickly load up the drawing in a browser for you. They don't even have to give you, permission rights on their machine. They just open up a browser, you log into AutoCAD Web using your Autodesk account. It's that easy.
Yep.
Obviously, we do have the issues there of security. So if it's a military organization, for example, you're going to have that internet locked down quite harshly. Yeah. So products like this might not be allowed to be used, for example. Yeah. But what you've got here is a full AutoCAD drawing. So I'm just going to jump in here like so. I'm going to make a change to these two bits of text here. They're multi-line text. Any modifications will remove all formatting and stylization. Now that's important because what happens with the web app is you lose things like your fonts and so on. You can't help that purely because you're working in a browser, and if it had to handle all that kind of stuff, it would be incredibly slow. So what we'll do, we'll zap that bit there and we'll take the room bit back up to there like that. There's the text height there, and I just click on the tick and that updates accordingly. So I'll do this one below as well. Just jump in there and edit that one as well. And bring the room bit up to the previous line and 150 high again, click on the tick, and they've updated accordingly. Now, the benefit you've got is I can now save this in the same folder where I saved it in the desktop app. Yeah. So I just go up here, I just hit save, like so. And it will cache that via the browser, tells me it's saving it. When that actually says save again, it's actually been saved. You'll also notice that if I am using a browser on a desktop machine, I can open the file in my desktop app if I want to. One of the nice new features is you've got this share functionality in 2022 as well, which allows you to share drawings, which I'll talk about when we get back to the desktop app. But that's now been saved. So what I'll do now, I'll go back to the regular AutoCAD, like so. And I think I'll probably have to share screens again here, won't I?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, let me just do that. There we go. There. Right, so I'm now back in the desktop app again. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to close my Revision C drawing, like so. Now, I didn't make any changes to it in the desktop app, so I should be able to just close that, and it doesn't prompt me about any changes. So I'll go up to Open now, up here in the Quick Access toolbar from Web and Mobile. Jump into my folder where we saved that previous file. There it is there, like so. And you can see the date change there as well. So you can see there, I made a change on today's date, 1st of June, 2021. And the time in the UK was about 20 past 8 in the evening. So if I open up that file like that, give it a few seconds to open up. Obviously, I'm in the desktop app, so it's much quicker. And you can see there's the changes I've made, just there like that. And that's just using the power of the cloud and the internet in AutoCAD Web. The same workflow would be used in AutoCAD Mobile if you were working on, say, AutoCAD on an iPad, for example. The workflow is different. You can use things like the Apple Pencil, and obviously the interface is different because you're working with a tablet kind of interface, or perhaps even a smartphone kind of interface.
Yeah.
But the technology, just from that simple workflow, you suddenly realize that I can save files up to the cloud and take them with me and go completely mobile. But the benefit there, you don't have to use the web and mobile folders that Autodesk provide with your Autodesk account. You can use things like OneDrive, Google Drive, Dropbox, Box. Any particular cloud-based silo can be used for all of your information.
Sure.
And the other benefit there as well is your block libraries can also be stored there as well. So if you've got a whole load of block libraries in AutoCAD, you can put those into the same OneDrive, Google Drive folder, and things like the web app and the mobile app will pick that up. And you've also got XREF support now is available on both the web app and the mobile app as well.
Yeah.
And the block support is fantastic because that block library can be stored in the cloud and used anywhere. I can remember so many times going out on site with my laptop, and I'd go to put a block in a drawing, and I'd suddenly think, oh man, I'm offline. I'm not connected to the server anymore.
Yeah.
I don't have any blocks. How do I do this? So you'd often find my drawings had lots of rectangles in that I had with a bit of text next to them saying this is a chair or this is a desk.
Yeah.
but the technology's there. And what I love about that technology is that the web app, the mobile app, and all that connectivity and the web and mobile folders is all part of your subscription. It's not extra. It's just all part of your subscription.
Yeah, I've definitely used the share button to coordinate and share drawings to developers that don't have any kind of Autodesk products, and that allows them to use that Autodesk viewer online. So
it's absolutely great. I mean, for example, it's up here on the Quick Access toolbar in 2022. You just hit the button, and providing you've got an internet connection, it'll give you an option. Again, my internet connection isn't massively fast, but I can set a view only drawing or an edit and save drawing. And there's the link there. I can copy that link, just hit a copy like that. That's then copied. I can drop that into an email. People can go and view that very quickly.
Yep. Yeah, I definitely like using that tool. So,
and the other bit of collaboration there, I mentioned traces in 2022. There's your traces palette. So if you put any traces into the web app or the mobile app, you then go into the traces palette there and they'll show up in the drawing. You can pick whichever trace you've got. You can name them and date them and give them a numbering hierarchy if you need to. And then you can just go in here. There won't be any at the moment, but basically AutoCAD web and mobile apps, any traces created would be shown here. I would select them and then they'd highlight in the drawing. I can make the necessary changes. One of the other nice new features as well is push to Autodesk Docs. That was announced at AU last year. Autodesk Docs is kind of combining lots of different things, BIM 360, Plan Grid, and various other things. All part of the Autodesk Construction Cloud. And push to Autodesk Docs. Again, it's another little driver that you have to install. It's called Autodesk Connector. Once you've got that set up, again, it's a 5-minute install. It doesn't take long. What that does is it opens up a palette. Oh, look, I have actually got some things in there. There you go.
There you go.
So I've got some drawings in there, and basically what you do is it works in a similar way to Sheet Set Manager in AutoCAD, where it only works with sheets. So the model tab wouldn't go in there, but any of my sort of like sheets like that, can go in, so I can upload one of those and it'll upload there. And the benefit I've got is if I've got any projects set up, everybody else will be able to see those too. So it's not just things like AutoCAD drawings that can go in there. Your Revit files can go in there. Your Inventor files can go in there. So it's all project driven with all the different files that you might need.
Yeah. Yeah, cool stuff. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Hopefully people are taking advantage of it. So
it's, well, one of the things that I have is I have an AutoCAD tips and tricks section on LinkedIn Learning.
Yeah.
So every week there's an AutoCAD tip and trick that comes up, a new one.
Yeah.
And obviously when the new versions of AutoCAD come through, so 2022 has got some quite cool stuff this time. So we've got the traces palette and push to Autodesk Docs. The other very cool one, actually, I don't know how many blocks I've actually got in this drawing, but we can run it anyway, is the count command. So if I run the count, it's a very simple command.
Yeah.
So it says select target objects. I'm gonna just go and select all of that, like so. And I've got a count of 1 there. So I've got 1 block there somewhere. Yeah, so I've got geometries 1. So that's all of that geometry there, for example. But what I can do there is, if I just close that for a second and run count again, like so, select the target objects. What I'll do is I'll go list all blocks instead. So I picked everything there as a block. If I list all blocks, there you go. And some of those are coming up with warnings saying that they might not work and so on. But the benefit I've got is I can pick any block like that, and there it is there.
Yeah.
Now, the reason that I've got so many blocks is because this was originally a Revit model. So each one of these is like a different family. So if I start selecting them, like so, I can zoom in to each one. There you go. There's a chair there.
Yeah, okay.
I go to that one, click there. It'll zoom me into that one, and so on. And it's a lovely feature. It's the equivalent of what we had back in the day when we had paper drawings. And we used to sit there with our Stabilo highlighters of all the different colors, highlighting each different block on a drawing. A bit like that. But the benefit you've got there as well is you can output all of this information as a count field. So if you've got a table, so if you put an AutoCAD table in the drawing, you can basically insert the count. So for example, that particular chair there has got 14 incidences of it. So you can list that count of 14 in a table against that particular block name.
Yeah.
It's useful functionality. And it's one of those simple things that suddenly when you start using it, you think, this is going to save me so much time. And I have to say the 2022 release of AutoCAD has actually got some really nice time savers in it.
Yep.
Sometimes you get some new features and you think, okay, I'm probably going to use that once or twice.
Yep.
Count and trace, I would say, are going to be used a lot. Trace especially as people get more mobile, using their tablets and their phones out on site.
Yeah, there's been times when, new features are added to, Civil 3D Autodesk, and I'll question like, who is using this? Who's going to, you got to think about, you're serving the whole world, so there's going to be people that's requesting that kind of feature or that tool. A good example is the lasso select tool. I can't stand that tool, but I'm sure somebody loves it, but I can't.
Have you heard of a thing called Marmite? Marmite is like a yeast spread that you put on toast in the UK, and people either love it or hate it. And the lasso, love or hate.
There's no middle. Just
there isn't, is there? It's either on or it's off. And you either like it or you don't like it. So one of the first things I do now in AutoCAD training is I take them to the options in AutoCAD and I just say, if you don't like this, there's the tick box. Turn it off.
That's exactly what I tell people too. Like, hey, you don't like the selection option as a default. If you're using the default settings of AutoCAD, here's where it is to turn it off.
And again, they're all the little kind of things that I put in on my tips and tricks over on LinkedIn Learning as well. They're the, selection methods. There's lots of tools in there in LinkedIn Learning. And one of the things that I've tried to do with the tips and tricks is give people little workflows that they might not be aware of. And I've had some lovely comments back, both in the classroom about my tips and tricks and on LinkedIn Learning. Just, oh, wow, what a light bulb moment. I wish I'd known this 10 years ago kind of thing. And I mean, I've been using AutoCAD 33 years, like I said, and I'm still learning.
Oh yeah.
There's still stuff in there that I've never touched before.
Yep. Yeah. I tell people all the time, just because, a lot of us are expert leads doesn't mean we have all the answers. We know every aspect, every single tool, command, and
Well, apart
software.
from Donnie has every answer for everything.
So it's impossible, especially on Civil 3D. Civil 3D is just so big that it's impossible. I haven't met somebody that knows every single tool, knows how to use it like the back of their hand.
It's really funny you should say that, actually. I was out in Salt Lake City in May 2019.
Yeah.
And I was doing work for Certiport and Autodesk. We were developing the new AutoCAD ACP and Revit ACP exams. And funnily enough, they were also doing the Civil 3D ACP that we had. I can't remember. I think we had 4 or 5 different Autodesk products there for the same week.
Yeah.
So we had AutoCAD, Revit, Inventor, and I think we might have had 3ds Max as well, possibly. Can't remember. But we ended up, quite weirdly enough, in the bar one night. There was about 15 Civil 3D guys and me, the token AutoCAD guy. This was the funny story I wanted to tell you. And honestly, the different opinions that were bouncing around about Civil 3D at that point, it was like, whoa, and some people got quite heated as well. It was like, why doesn't it do that?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know. I just use AutoCAD. But yeah, that was a great week, actually. I learned a lot about Civil 3D just by sitting in the bar with a bunch of guys, just chewing the fat, really. Having an evening.
And there's just so many different ways to do it in Civil 3D. That's kind of another issue. Is some people are the ribbon person, the pull down person, the right click person, the command person, the tool space person. The create my own command alias, change the commands person. It's going to change all the way they code it. So
all the people that were the bane of my life as a CAD manager.
Yeah. So I remember one time I did a training session. I'm teaching people Civil 3D, and it says, "Hey, I don't have those buttons." So what are you talking about? He turned off the ribbon and went back to classic toolbars. And well, I didn't like it. I'm like, well, this is what we're going to use, the ribbon. We're not going back to 2009 classic toolbars. Like, well, I'm not going to use it. Well, you're going to struggle learning this product then. And so
yeah.
So
it's funny you should say that, but when I type commands now, I actually get people saying, "What are you doing?" And it's like, "Oh, I've just typed Z for zoom, enter, and then E for extents, enter." And it's like, "Why have you done it that way? You can just right click and select zoom on the shortcut menu." And I said, "Yeah, and here's the other 3 ways to do it as well."
Exactly. It's exactly.
And you kind of explained that Autodesk has gone, with AutoCAD from a monochrome monitor, without windows, without things to click on, where you had to type absolutely everything in full as well. Every command had to be typed in full back then. There was no shortcuts or anything like that.
Yeah, I'm having to learn 2 methods. When I'm at work designing, I have a gaming mouse that has the 12 buttons. Okay.
Yep.
I program those for all commands. So I can hit the shift button and shift over to another 12 commands, shortcuts for using keyboards. But on my left hand, I have the other 12 button command keyboard.
Oh, wow.
So this button's a shift, there's a target, there's a mouse, everything. So I can just shift and go to another 200 command shortcuts just by clicking and shifting, so that way the only time I'm using the keyboards, I'm actually writing something like, a whole paragraph or a sentence. It's the only time I'm doing it.
Yeah, I'm with you.
But then I go home, I don't have these equipments. I have just an ergonomical keyboard and that's it. So I have to, get accustomed doing that. But it is useful. I've taught myself, it saves me time from typing in commands or pulling pull downs where I can just click a button in my left hand and pick a button on the right hand and just the whole time just doing this, So
I use a lot of the 3D connection stuff, the space mic.
That's on my list here.
My standard mouse is one of those. I don't think, there you go. You can just see that there. That's the CAD mouse from 3D Connection. And I love that because it's wireless. It's got 3 buttons instead of 2. So I can program that extra button. That extra button is great for just enter or space bar kind of type
I did a video on my user group where people are like, well, that's just too complicated to learning a 12 button mouse for shortcuts. I'm like, well, if 12 buttons is too much, we'll just pop this off and go to a 6 button one and program that for you. And I'm like, well, let's just go back to basics. And like, well, can't we just use a regular mouse? Like, okay, you can pop that off and go back to your 2-button mouse. And so you can switch it back and forth. So
yeah, my son's got a lot of that gaming technology
yeah.
upstairs. Yeah, he's got, I can't remember what brand he uses. He's got a particular keyboard and mouse that has all the interchangeable pieces.
Razer or Corsair or Logitech. So
it's one of those, definitely
Roco,
one of those. I think it's Razer stuff he uses, if I remember rightly.
I'm actually testing out gaming mouses to see which one is really great for Civil 3D and InfraWorks and stuff like that. So I probably have there's probably 20 in front of me. There's another 20 gaming mouses over there. There's another 20 over there. Testing them all out to see which one is just really efficient. Even ergonomical, unique.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I go with the 3D connection stuff because it's ergonomically designed and it's comfortable.
Yeah.
I've been through the upright mouse, the little one with the trackball for your thumb.
The trackball ones. Yep.
Yeah, I've done all that. And again, this is another thing that, I did a course on LinkedIn Learning, and it was all about hardware configuration for AutoCAD, Revit, and Inventor. And we primarily obviously concentrated on the graphics and, having hardware acceleration on or off and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But the other thing that I talked about was like keyboard, mouse, and so on. And it made me think quite a lot about, hang on a minute, these are all human interface devices. And you need to be comfortable, and you need to make sure that you're not getting things like RSI and carpal tunnel syndrome and all those horrible things that affect your hands and all that kind of stuff as well. So it's really important that, you utilize that side of the technology as well.
Yep.
For example, last week I had to go and get my eyes checked, my usual 2-year checkup. And I've just had to spend loads of money on new glasses because I've realized that, at the age of 51, my eyesight is definitely not getting any better. You just have to work with this stuff. And, at the end of the day, regardless of whether you're human or a computer, things wear out and things get old and things fall off. It's just the way it is.
So last question before we sign off. Are you part of any kind of organizations or communities within your community?
Funnily enough, it's funny you should mention user groups. Way back when, I think 2010, I was on the board of directors for Orgi for about 5 and a bit years. And one of the things that I was quite closely involved with was the local user groups and making sure the user group sort of portal worked on the Orgi website and so on. And we worked on various different, kind of procedures and things to try and make that easier for people to set up user groups. I got involved with a user group for a little while, a facilities management user group here in the UK. Did a few presentations for them here in the UK. At the moment, though, I don't really get involved. I'm just sadly too busy. The one thing I have just started getting involved with is obviously they've brought back the community groups with Autodesk themselves. So you've got the community pages over on Facebook and the like. And I've just started sort of talking to the likes of I'll think of her name in a minute. It's completely gone out of my head. I know that Wendy Lim is one of them, if I remember rightly. On the AEC side. So you might see my face on some of that. I've talked to the AutoCAD, it's Tiana, I think, who does AutoCAD on the community side, and been talking to them. I've kind of put my head above the parapet and said, if you want me to help out, I will. So you might see me on the community pages here and there, possibly. But user group wise, I sadly have not dramatically been involved in much, unfortunately.
I've been the past year. I've been heavily involved with the Autodesk department from the community groups, so the user groups, the community dojos. So I've been doing a lot of stuff in the background with working with their development teams on that. So it's been fun working with Rachel and
that's the one, Rachel Hartley. You remember that name for me?
Rachel. So we've been doing a lot of meetings and stuff, and we got a lot of stuff coming down the pipeline that we've been focusing on. So, And so not just Community Dojo, but also the group network. So I'm also president of a local user group. So I give my feedback and participating in creating that handout that now you can download for
I
anybody
think
who
it's
wants
really
to.
good what they've done.
Yeah.
Over the last few AUs, I've noticed a big change in Autodesk when it comes to community.
Yep.
And it's nice to see that that kind of transitions into the expert elite side of things as well.
Yeah,
it's been a really nice phase of Autodesk, if you see what I mean, from that perspective. And yeah, I mean, I got a nice little award this year for all my work on the internet.
I saw that.
Autodesk. I wasn't expecting that at all. It was like I saw the FedEx email and it was like, what have they sent me this time? And I was thinking, did I ask for some notepads or a hoodie or something?
A hoodie.
And all of a sudden I had this beautiful little award, and I was like, wow, I feel quite honored. It's really, quite humbling to realize that people do actually listen to you once in a while on the internet.
Outside of Autodesk products, do you do anything in, I guess, family or the community? Some people are part of Boy Scouts or stuff like that, organizations that help the community.
Not really. One of the things that I do outside, obviously, of
hobbies,
Autodesk stuff. Yeah, well, the big hobby is I've got a couple of expensive acoustic guitars sitting right next to me over here.
Oh, there you go.
And one of the things I did, it's going back a bit now, but in 2012, it was a bucket list thing that I wanted to do, and I released an album.
Oh, wow!
That went out on iTunes and Spotify and all the other providers out there. So that's out there. So if you look for Shaun C. Bryant, that's my stage name with an extra C in the middle, which is actually just my middle initial. But yeah, there's a website out there, ShaunCBryant.com at the moment, which is under construction. I'm tweaking that a little bit because one of the things I've got into over the last couple of years is I'm actually writing some fiction.
Oh, wow.
Actually sitting there writing a novel, and that was a weird one. It was a weird little kind of hobby that started up because I started watching a TV show called Grimm. I don't know if you've heard of it.
I've heard of it.
All based around Grimm's fairy tales and stuff and everything. And if you haven't watched it, it's good fun. It's nice visual bubble gum. You don't have to think too hard about it.
Yeah. But
I'd always had this fascination historically with things like the Knights Templar and the Holy Grail and, things like the Da Vinci Code, Tom Hanks, all that kind of stuff. And I started kind of reading up historically about all this kind of stuff and suddenly thought to myself, so I sort of saw Grimm and saw the historical side of that and the backstory and everything else. And I thought, let's give this a go. And funnily enough, one of my old Autodesk colleagues is now a published author of fiction. Yeah. And I started talking to him and kind of said, well, where do I start with this?
Yeah.
And he put me onto an app. It's an app called Scrivener. And you can, funnily enough, they've just released it for Windows now. It used to only be available on Apple, on the Mac OS. And it's basically everything you would ever need to write a screenplay or a book.
Oh, wow.
Because you've got like Post-it note boards and things where you can just go and add information. So if you've got a board where you want all your character names and who they are and how they fit in, you can have that just in one screen. So you can go, okay, so lead male guy is such and such a name and he does this and he does this. And then you can jump back into your actual writing, which is all done in like a historical tree format. Bit like sort of File Explorer in Windows kind of idea. And because obviously I'm kind of analytical and engineering, it all kind of fitted in with my psyche about writing because I didn't want to just be on Word, for example, just typing stuff.
Yeah.
So it started making sense how all this kind of pulled together. So I bought a copy of Scrivener and I'm now probably about 2/3 into the first one of a trilogy now.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And then, I'll probably just self-publish it on Amazon or something, see how it goes. But again, it's another little bucket list thing that I've then done and I'm happy with. So,
Yep. If somebody wants to follow you on social media, where would they go? And what?
Anywhere and everywhere. The best place to find me is on LinkedIn. Just put Shaun Bryant into LinkedIn. You'll find me there. Very much so. I've got a Facebook page, which is Shaun CAD Jedi Bryant, which is my username in the Autodesk forums. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. The best way to find my blog and Instagram and Twitter is to look up a thing called Not Just CAD, which is the name of the blog that I've used for many years. One of the things that's happened on LinkedIn recently is I now have a thing called newsletter access. And I've got a Not Just CAD newsletter, which comes out bi-weekly on LinkedIn. I've just got LinkedIn Live access as well. So there will be a video podcast for Not Just CAD sometime soon as well. So you can sit and listen and watch and enjoy. I've just put a poll up actually on LinkedIn to ask what people want in those video podcasts as well. So, and as the name says, Not Just CAD. It might not be CAD that we talk about. It might be something completely different. You know, I've got lots of things that I follow: rugby, Formula One, all that kind of stuff. So, you know, it might be something like that I talk about. You know, for example, is Lewis Hamilton's trip to the top going to end sometime soon because Verstappen is now starting to perform really well. You know, Formula One is something that I've loved for years and years and years. I'm a bit of a petrol head. I do love the sports cars and everything else.
I just finished watching Rush last night, so
that's a great film. And to be brutally honest, that's when Formula One was amazing because it was the drivers, it wasn't just the cars there.
Well, I want to thank you for your time. I think I had a good time.
Absolutely.
Enjoyed
Thanks
it.
for inviting me, Tony. It was great.
Yeah, the first round, we're just doing introduction. You know, I think this is a lot better than somebody just reading your profile. They get to interact and see how, you know, what really makes you tick, what you enjoy, your personality, you know. So I think these are a lot better. The second round is where we're going to get more in depth. We're going to start talking about CAD management, training, the software, more industry insight, you know, information. So hopefully you'll be able to.
Let me know.
Yeah.
More than happy.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I want to thank everyone for watching and stay tuned for the next session. Thank you.
Cheers, Tony.